Welcome back, friends. Today I am spending the day baking. I am trying to pare down my grocery budget as much as possible right now. So everywhere that I can make savings, I am taking advantage of. I know a lot of people are feeling the pinch of inflation right now and are looking to save money in any way possible. So I wanted to discuss how making things from scratch and home-baked goods can save you a decent amount of money from your grocery bill, and it tastes far superior and is typically much healthier. I am starting today off making 2 loaves of bread. One will be kept out and one will be kept in the freezer. Bread at the store varies in price, with bakery bread being typically quite expensive, up to $10 a loaf. Store-bought is typically around $5 to $7 a loaf here, and the cheapest bread is about $2.50, which is the white Wonder Bread. Now, the quality of that is pretty dismal, and there are a lot of preservatives in it. And there's no shame in buying Wonder Bread. If you don't have the time to bake and that's all you can afford, then Wonder Bread is perfectly fine. But I wanted to find a different option, something that was healthier for my family and something that is more cost effective. And I've had somebody argue with me before that homemade bread was not less expensive than the store-bought bread, so I wanted to break it down to see exactly how much cheaper it was than the store-bought brand. So I recently paid $10 for a 10-pound bag of flour. That equals 27 cents per cup of flour. For this recipe, yeast cost about 10 cents and the sugar about 5 cents. This makes each loaf of bread $1.05. This means that off of the cheapest loaf of bread, I save $1.45. And off the most expensive bakery bread, I save a whopping $8.95 each time I bake bread. Now, the power that you would use to bake this is fairly negligible. However, I am also baking this in my wood cook stove, which I use to heat the house, so it costs me pretty much nothing to bake these. If you are looking for the recipes to be able to bake yourself, I will make sure that I put the recipes for all of these in the description box for you. Next, I am moving on to a plum pie. Now, the reason I am doing a plum pie is because a couple of years ago, I canned up a bunch of stewed plums. My kids adore home canned fruit, so I thought that these stewed plums would be a big hit. Unfortunately, they were not. So I have a lot of canned plums that I have to work through. So I decided today that I was going to make a pie. My family loves a nice fruit pie, so I think this will be delicious. As I was making this, I was curious about how much money I save by making my own pie crust and my own pie. I know pre-made pie crusts are pretty available at the store, although quality compared to homemade pie crust there's a pretty big difference there. So I looked into it, and pie crust at the store range in price between deep dish, which I'm making right now, and regular crust. So a regular crust would be around $3 for the cheapest, and again with different brands and deep dish, you'd be going up to about $8 per pie crust. Now, the flour for my pie crust is about 90 cents, and the lard that I use is about 75 cents, bringing my pie crust in at $1.65. So for the absolute cheapest pie crust, which would not be what I would be using today, I would be saving $1.65. But for the deep dish pie crust, which I would be using today, I'd be saving a whopping $6.35 just by making my own pie crust. And I'm actually going to get an extra dish out of this because you see that I am draining my plums from the light syrup that I used to can them in. Now I'm going to keep that syrup and I'm going to make jello out of it at the end of the day because I'm definitely not going to be wasting that. Now I'm saving a decent amount of money with my pie crust, but how much money do I save with a home-baked pie? So I did the calculations. In season, when I got these plums, the plums cost about $4 for what I'd be using here. The sugar costs about 30 cents and the spices about 10 cents, bringing the total cost of the pie to $6.05. Now, if you look into the pies, again, there is a wide range in between the cheapest store-bought pie or going to a Mennonite farm and buying a pie or bakery pie. So the very cheapest pie that you can buy at the store is about $15. Now, again, what you would normally be buying, it's about $15 to $20 for a pie, but these pies go up to $40. It's crazy. I know last year I personally picked up a pie going to a family's house for $30 and it honestly wasn't that great. So the pies that I can make at home save a ton of money and taste wonderful. Now I'm not a pastry chef and I haven't practiced a ton with making my pies look pretty, but they taste delicious. So doing the math on the cheapest pie, I save $8.95 by making my own. On a $20 pie, I save $13.95. And on the most expensive pie, I save a whopping $33.95 by being able to make my own. It has become more and more apparent to me over the years of being frugal and saving money that the more skills you have, the less money you need. For everything that you can do yourself, you don't need to pay someone else to do it. Baking isn't necessarily a skill that I have honed over the years. I can do basics like bread and pie, but I'm dedicating myself this year to learn to do more so that I can provide more for my family and save money while doing it. We grow a lot of fruit here. We have a lot of apple trees, pear trees, peaches, and I'm just getting nectarines. So I do plan on making a lot of fruit pies throughout the year. These make a wonderful dessert and they're pretty nutritious, even though they do have a bit of sugar in there, but it's a great way to get some fruit in. And my kids love it as a dessert. When I first moved out on my own, I got this cookbook. I think it's a Better Homes and Garden cookbook, and I started using this pie crust recipe. It's the first one I've ever tried, and I've actually never tried another pie crust. It's always just worked well for me. But I guess this year, maybe I will take a foray into trying different pie crusts and to see if they're any better. We also typically always make our own birthday cakes here. They cost about $5 to make, but in the store, it costs $40 for a birthday cake, typically. Sometimes $30, but for the size that I make my birthday cakes, it costs $40. So you can save $35 by making your own birthday cake. I'm also going to look into making my own granola bars. My kids love eating granola bars for a snack, so I would like to make my own. I'd like to avoid some of the ingredients that are in typical store-bought granola bars, and I think that it would be a pretty good savings there as well. I tried once and they kind of crumbled apart, so I need to look into some more recipes for granola bars. If anybody out there has a good recipe, please let me know in the comments because I would love to try it. Next, I am moving on to some cranberry banana chocolate chip muffins. Now, these are muffins that I typically do for my kids. They're allergen-free muffins, so there's no eggs or dairy in here at all. I like doing these muffins because I get to use up bananas that end up in my freezer because my children will not eat bananas the second they have a brown spot on them. So I end up with a decent amount of bananas in my freezer, so I like to be able to use them up. I also get to use up some of my applesauce or pear sauce that I have canned. Fun fact, if you run out of applesauce but you have pear sauce acts like an applesauce as an egg replacer. As I had mentioned earlier, we have pear trees on our property, and last year I decided to do a lot of pear sauce, again thinking that my children would love it. Unfortunately, they do not like the pear sauce like they enjoy the applesauce, so I ended up with a lot of pear sauce in my cupboards. So trying to use it up, I now use it in baking, replacing eggs. And I think in the States where your egg prices are the way they are, maybe applesauce or pear sauce would be a better replacement, a cheaper replacement in baking instead of using eggs. Now for the muffins I am using today, I'm not using the cheapest ingredients I could use, so it does bring the price up a little bit, but they're still cheaper than the store-bought versions. So for these muffins, I use about $1 in flour, $1 for the maple syrup. The applesauce from store-bought would cost about 50 cents. I use some flax meal in here, which is about 50 cents. I'm going to say 20 cents for the cranberries that I bought on sale at Christmas, and about 20 cents for the banana. I also add in a non-dairy milk in here. I'd say that would cost about 20 cents as well, considering I got that milk on sale. It brings the total cost of 12 muffins to about $3.50. Looking at store-bought muffins, the bigger muffins, where there's about 6 muffins in the container, cost about $10 for that container. And these are not the special dairy-free, allergen-free muffins. Those muffins cost about $20 per container. So the savings here, once again, are huge. I save about $6.70 for these muffins on just regular muffins. Although I'm noticing here, I did not add in my chocolate chips, so even if you said that was 50 cents of chocolate chips, that would still bring my savings to $6.20. And if you wanted to add this into the allergen-free category, that would save me $16.50. That's crazy how much money you can save just by making these at home. So I am saying this without recognizing the fact that there are barriers to being able to bake at home. There is an upfront cost of making sure that you do have the appropriate equipment, like a muffin tin or the baking bowls or things like that, measuring spoons. Now, you can also go to Value Village or Salvation Army or whatever local thrift store you have. This is how I got all of my tools that I needed for baking. Being able to thrift all of your tools that you need for baking is a much more cost-efficient way of getting these tools, but there is still a startup cost. But in the long run, if you continue to bake and save the money with your homemade baking, these items will end up paying for themselves. When we invested in our wood cook stove, I did it with the intention of knowing that I'd be able to cook on here and bake here while we were heating our house, also saving in energy expenditure. I also know that that's not something that everybody can do, but still using your oven and expending the energy to bake your homemade goods, you are still ahead. I will also point out that in the pricing that I am pricing with white sugar. But in my recipes here, I am using this agave syrup that I have, but I'm using it strictly to get it out of my pantry because it's not something that I'm going to use again. And in the future, I will be using sugar. So moving on, I am starting to make bagels here. This is something new to me. This is my second time here making them. So I thought this was pretty exciting to do. My kids love having bagels and cream cheese. It's one of their favorite lunches to have with some vegetables on the side. So I end up buying a lot of bagels. So I thought that I would take some time, learn a new skill, and learn how to bake my own bagels. The really fun part about learning things these days is that there are a lot of free options available so that you can go find recipes and you don't need to go buy a cookbook. You don't need to go take lessons. These lessons are available for free. So I was able just to look up on the internet a recipe for bagels. It came with all the instructions I needed. And if I wanted more instructions, I could have looked them up on YouTube and seen a video of somebody making bagels. This is an amazing tool to be able to have these days to just be able to freely learn. So I encourage you, if you are looking to learn any new skill or to do anything new, to take the leap, no matter what it is. Go on YouTube, take a look on Pinterest, figure it out, and just do it. It is so worth it and so easy to access the information. So while my bagels are rising, I am just getting my dough separated and into different loaf pans so that my bread can have a second rise. Now, I have had some people mention on my frugal videos before that they notice that I am in a t-shirt in some of these videos, and I will explain that. We do not keep our heat higher than 17 degrees in our house. However, when I get my wood fire going, our heat can sometimes get up to 25. So my wood fireplace really heats our house really, really well, and it is such a blessing. But on top of that, once I get moving around, if I am wearing a sweater, I will most definitely have a hot flash and start sweating. So I make sure that when I'm doing activities like this, I put on a t-shirt to avoid getting uncomfortable. So if you are curious at all about why I am in a t-shirt in the middle of winter while I am professing about frugality, it is because my wood stove is awesome and I am also getting older. So I personally love learning new things and love a good challenge. I think it is a lot of fun. So making these bagels was really enjoyable for me. And because I also like to turn frugality and saving money into a bit of a game, I like to figure out how much these cost as well. So for this recipe, it makes 8 bagels. I use about $1.10 for flour, 20 cents for yeast, 5 cents for sugar. So the total cost of 8 bagels comes to $1.35. Now, for the bagels in the store, they normally come in a package of 6. The bagels we buy are typically $4 for a package of 6. And some of these bagels can range up to $8. If you were buying bakery store bagels, it would be about $3 per bagel. So the savings here again is huge. So just going from the package of bagels that we normally buy, and this is for a package of 6, so the savings is actually a bit more, but I would save $2.65. But if I said it was for 8 bagels, it would probably be in around $3.50 that I would save. And for the $8 package of bagels, I'm saving $6.65. These savings are huge. If we are going through a package of bagels per week and I make them instead, that saves me $182 per year. $182 just because I'm making my own bagels. Calculating what I saved today, calculating on the least amount of what I would have saved today, just by baking all of these things myself, I have saved $25. But if I am using the higher priced items, then the savings shoots up to $66.25 that I have saved just by taking some time to bake at home. Now, I am no professional baker, so what I am baking is not perfect, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, not only are these cheaper, but they taste way better than the store-bought versions. They're fresher and they're healthier. They don't have the preservatives that the store-bought versions have in them either. And by learning to bake at home, we can also amend the recipes to what our family prefers. We can do some things that some family members prefer and some for the other family members. If there's allergies, we can leave the allergens out. We can make things better for our family while saving money while doing it. For me, I also find a lot of joy in baking as it serves as a creative outlet, especially when I get to try new things like these bagels. So for this recipe, you're noticing that I'm putting an egg wash on. I did not necessarily add that to the price breakdown as it's not necessary. It just helps to get a crusty brown finish on the top, but it is not necessary to add that egg wash on there. If this is something that you enjoy watching, I encourage you to take a look at my budget meals as well as my frugal living playlists. I am living on one income while homeschooling my children, and I love to find all the frugal ways that I can save some money. So if you are interested in the same, please make sure you check out those playlists. I will make sure that I link my budget playlist at the end of this video here. But I am not one to gatekeep, so I will be sharing all of my frugal tips and hacks on this channel. So if you are interested in that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hang out for a while. And I absolutely encourage you to try out this bagel recipe. I know it seems intimidating, but they are really easy and so delicious. They are definitely worth a try. Make sure you check out the description box because that recipe will be in there. And as promised, I made Jell-O from the leftover pear sauce or plum sauce from my canned plums. These were spiced plums, so this plum jelly was so delicious. Again, I will link my budget meal playlist here. Make sure you head over there to take a look at all the videos. I have a lot of budget meals there. So if you're looking to save some money, make sure you check that out or check out my frugal living playlist. I hope you are all well, and I will see you all next time.